Hey, welcome to Let's Unravel, and I'm your friend Christina. So, does Gen Z care more about personality than class? All that and more in today's episode. But before that, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. So, thanks for stopping by. Whether you're a new listener or a friend of the show, I just wanted to say welcome. So, guys, the Winter Olympics have officially started. We had our opening ceremonies on Friday, February 6th, which was pretty crazy. Let me know, drop a comment down below if you watched the opening ceremony live or if you did a quick playback or something like that. I'm so curious. And we will talk about the Olympics in this episode because I think for the next 2 weeks, the Olympics will be my personality. Anyways, if you happen to be watching or listening on YouTube, make sure you're pressing that subscribe button to stay up to date on all new episodes. Make sure you're pressing that little bell button. That is the notifications so you get notified when new episodes come out. We release new episodes every single Thursday, and you are not going to want to miss this. And if you happen to be listening elsewhere, such as Apple Podcast or Spotify, make sure you're pressing that follow button to stay up to date once again. And also, if you're enjoying this episode, make sure you're pressing that like button and you're sharing this with your friends. We are going to have a really interesting show for you today. So the win of the week this week is we officially hit 500 downloads. That number is coming from all of the listens between Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we have a few other platforms within that realm as well. That would be like iHeartMusic. That would be like Amazon Music and those platforms as well. Basically, it's everything except for YouTube. So it's really exciting. We officially hit 500 downloads. Now, downloads is basically a fancy way of just saying listens. We've had 500 listens across our catalog of episodes. This is a huge milestone. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of you that are listening. To think that we started this podcast back in June of 2025, and let's just say it was a little bit of a rough start, but we have hit 500 downloads. That is super exciting. And also another really cool thing is our latest episode. It was our pop culture report for January 2026. That is our highest viewed podcast to date, I believe, on YouTube. We are almost at 400 views. I mean, this is Saturday when I'm recording this episode. And so who knows, by the time Thursday rolls around, maybe it'll be a little higher. I mean, just put it this way, we're almost at 400 views on one video. That's a huge accomplishment for Let's Unravel. So again, thank you to all of you that happen to be listening. Wouldn't be here without you. So let's move into our topic of the week. So this one I'm really excited about. And if there was going to be a name for it, I was going to call it Personality is in the Air. And the reason why its personality is in the air, just like at the top of this episode, when I stated, does Gen Z care more about personality than class? That is what the focal point of this episode is all about. And the main observation I have noticed with Gen Z is they have changed the status quo on what it means to have class because their generation is all about personality. And so I'm 29 and I'm in one of those really weird places where I'm right on the cusp of millennial and I'm right on the cusp of Gen Z. You see, I have older siblings. So naturally, I have a lot of that millennial experience just because of having an older sister and an older brother. But then just like I have my older siblings with the influence of the millennials, I have all my friends and they have the heavy influence of Gen Z. So unfortunately, I think they call it zillennial, or I'm a cusper, right on the cusp. But like I said, the biggest observation I've noticed with Gen Z is they are all about personality. And if you don't see it, or better yet, you don't believe it, hold tight. Because there's two main points that is going to change your mind on that. So the first one is the Grammys from last week. Now, I'm not going to lie, I didn't watch the Grammys. I totally didn't even realize they were on last week. But I had heard so much because, social media, you hear things all the time. And so naturally, I got the recap from Instagram and TikTok and believe it or not, even Facebook. Yeah, Facebook, it comes in clutch at times. Anyways, but one of the biggest things I had noticed, so I am currently a huge fan of Olivia Dean. I just really love and adore her. Everything from her style, music style, everything from just the clothes that she's wearing. There's just something about her personality that you're oh, she has that it factor about her. And so naturally, I had found out that she was nominated for an award at the Grammys. She was nominated for Best New Artist. And spoiler alert, she won. And then another big star that I heard a lot about from the Grammys was none other than Chappell Roan. Now, for any of you that don't know Chappell Roan, she is a popular singer. She's 27. She's from the US, and you might have heard her songs Hot to Go, Pink Pony Club, and Good Luck Babe. Now, if you're anything like me, You turn on the radio. If I'm being honest, I don't think I've listened to just like the regular radio in like such a long time. But every once in a while when I do, I have heard Chappell Roan's music on whatever radio station's playing. And also having gone to a bunch of weddings last year, I was definitely hearing her songs on the radio as well. Well, no, I was at a wedding, but I heard him on the dance floor. You know what I mean. Anyways, but one of the biggest things that I noticed between Olivia Dean and Chappell Roan is they have these very recognizable personality. And also, with Chappell Roan being at the Grammys, she was also nominated for 2 awards. She was nominated for Record of the Year and Best Pop Solo Performance. Spoiler alert, she didn't win either. But the point of looking at Olivia Dean and Chappell Roan is for this very simple idea. It's not to compare and to contrast that one is better than the other. It's not that at all. The point is to really see that Gen Z cares about personality. And another way that you can, honestly, the way that I feel like Gen Z has shifted the narrative on personality is it's really authenticity. They just want someone that is being authentically or maybe the closest personification of who they are as like an individual. And so with Olivia Dean and Chappell Roan, these are 2 of today's breakout music stars. And so what is so interesting is we are going to look at their music identity, fashion, and visual branding along with their audience and cultural position. They're both influential, but very different in how they present themselves and connect with culture. So let's look at Olivia Dean first as far as the music and artistry goes and her identity. So her core style, she is very soul-inspired, pop, R&B, and jazzy. And her songwriting is viewed as personal and introspective with like this emotional honesty to it. And some of my favorite things is she has a heavy classic influence such as like Aretha Franklin, Lauryn Hill, Supremes, and modern pop sensibility. So to look at some of her influences like Aretha Franklin, classic. Now, one of my personal favorites is Lauryn Hill. She has had, just her album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. That was a phenomenal album. If you've never listened to it, definitely go listen to it. And I recommend start from the very first song. Don't do like a shuffle, just listen all the way through. But it was, and I believe it's actually won awards for being like a great no skip album. But the point, or I don't think it's an award, but people have referenced that it's like a no skip album, but it's a great album. And so in this instance with Olivia Dean, you see who her influences are. And that is something that is so relative to her sound. You pick up on that when you're listening to her music. And even like what I had said in last week's pop culture episode, a lot of times when I listen to Olivia Dean, I feel like someone literally plucked her out of another generation and plopped her here. And she has like a modern sound. So like, well, no, she's been modernized to fit our current day culture, but she has the soul. Like she has that soul. She has that inspiration from older artists like Aretha Franklin and Lauryn Hill. And so as for her artist persona, she comes across as being authentic, that personality area, vulnerable, emotionally grounded. She's presenting comfortable strength, sophisticated, like all these really beautiful adjectives. But most importantly, she's timeless. She's timeless in her songwriting rather than just being bold and theatrical. So her audience is going to be leaning towards broad pop R&B listeners. And now as we move into Chappell Roan, another thing I do want to give a distinction on is Olivia Dean's only 26 and Chappell Roan's only 27. This gives us a really good framework of being able to understand they're not too far off in age. Now, the only caveat that I will give that could be a slight distinction between the two of them is Olivia Dean is from the UK and Chappell Roan is from the US. So obviously you're going to have some differences just from Olivia Dean being from the UK and, there's different cultural standards. So that is a little bit of a caveat, but I think we can work past it. So back to Chappell Roan. Her core style is she's pop with art pop and dance pop roots, but informed heavily by theatrical, camp, and drag culture. You notice this just by the way that she presents, from her makeup and her concerts and all these things. You can see this in her songs like Pink Pony Club, Hot to Go, and merge catchy pop hooks with performance art energy. So I've seen clips of Chappell Roan's performances. They're very high energy, very different than Olivia Dean's clips, where Olivia Dean, it has that jazzy feel, whereas Chappell Roan, it's a pop concert. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Very different. Goes back to personality, authenticity. Now, moving on to Chappell Roan's artist persona, she is perceived as larger than life. She's very expressive and she strongly connects with the LGBT community, and her music and visuals often feel like performance art with pop structures. So these are all the things that we've talked about, and even her audience, her fans are invested in her performance, the queer culture, and theory-informed pop. So this is the underlying theory that we notice with Chappell Roan, is that she is very much about pop art. It's very theatrical. So, and in a lot of ways, when I look at Chappell Roan, I can't help but kind of see like Lady Gaga. You know, when I was going through high school, or honestly, more like when I was like in middle school, between like middle school to high school, there were so many things that you would hear about like Lady Gaga. Like, now, granted, Chappell Roan, I don't think she's worn a meat dress, but like Lady Gaga, I just always remember seeing an interview of Justin Bieber talking about going to the MTV Music Awards and him seeing Lady Gaga in the meat dress. And he was just like, wow, she wore a meat dress. And so, in a lot of ways, I see Chappell Roan kind of like a Lady Gaga. But this is something I'll say about Lady Gaga that I was always really impressed by is Lady Gaga went from being this very theatrical, larger than life, and in a lot of ways she still is too. But I loved when she kind of went through like this rebrand, and you know what I'm talking about, everything from like The Star is Born and how she did a whole tour with Tony Bennett. And Lady Gaga is extremely talented. No one can deny her that. And the exact same thing with Chappell Roan, extremely talented. And you can see that even like with the songs, whether she's writing her own songs or whether someone else is writing her songs, it's irrelevant. But her vocal range, she's very talented. And even the way she's able to present these songs and even like the pop culture moments, very talented. So there is no metric of comparing, okay, is Olivia Dean more talented than Chappell Roan? Like, that's not even a conversation on the table. But what is so unique is breaking down their personality differences and what they're really leaning towards. And so with Chappell Roan, she is very niche in the personality that she's holding because she's really just going after that visual, like, pop art feel, but also she's heavily relying on the wow factor. You see that even at the Grammys. You see that in the way that she dresses, that she was the one that was wearing the dress that was literally held up by nipple piercings. And you know what? I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum. If that's something that you're into, by all means. But it is definitely a wow statement. It is definitely a wow, like I didn't know you could do that. Whereas obviously when you see Olivia Dean, she's coming in, she's doing kind of feels like old Hollywood, or not even necessarily old Hollywood, but very like jazz clubby, like elegant, that type of thing. And it goes back to personality. And that is the thing that brings the authenticity, brings the rawness, because it aligns with those individuals. Now, in the process of looking at both of these singers, because of their different personalities, because of their different music styles, what ends up being curated as far as their fashion and visual branding is going to look vastly different. So, example, like when we think about Olivia Dean, I instantly think of the word like elegant, sophisticated, that type of thing. She's very polished. And with those ideas at hand, she is creating like this timeless look for herself because she's going more of the classic fashion route. And so because of doing this, because it's establishing more of an elevated look to her, she's able to secure luxury brand deals. So like she's had brand partnerships with Burberry. She's had a perfume with them. She has worked with Cartier. She's made appearances in Louis Vuitton and Gucci. And so through her personality, this is where you're able to see a whole nother side of really Olivia Dean and how it's coming out. And even like one of my favorite things with her is she comes across as being very expressive and very happy. And one of the concerns that I have with Chappell Roan is she doesn't look very happy. And so when we move into Chappell Roan and her visual branding, once again, it goes back to being bold, theatrical. So a lot of the brand partnerships that she's getting based on her personality, it's like MAC Cosmetics because it's all about like makeup and it's this bold look. And so it's showing as more of self-expression. So before we move forward, let's just really talk about what we know so far about both of these singers. Is you have Olivia Dean. She's very soulful. She has this timeless, chic aesthetic to her. That's her branding ultimately. And based on her brand personality, it is showing to be very authentic to who she is as an individual. Now, when we look at someone like Chappell Roan, the first thing that comes to mind with her is it's very like bold, theatrical, because that is the way that she is presenting. And then on top of it, it's the same thing with her music. It's coming across as like these pop anthems. And the best way to summarize Chappell Roan is the influence that she's having right now is you are going to see that she is marking a time in history in the sense of perfect example is kind of like Carly Rae Jepsen with the song Call Me Maybe is really the marking of the early 2010s. And it's the same thing I think about with Chappell Roan, especially like her song Hot to Go. I mean, between the TikTok dances, between the song, this is like, that has become a moment in time where it's like, it's a sign of the time. And so that is where things are starting to be different. And so this is where going back to Gen Z, why does Gen Z care more about personality than class? Now, the reason why I think Gen Z cares more about personality is it's authentic. It's real. It's palpable. It's there. It's a finger on the pulse. Whereas when you think about class is very rigid. It's all these rules. It's all these regulations. And what really brought me to the forefront of this thinking was looking at the Grammys. You have so many different kinds of people at the Grammys, so many different styles. And ultimately, the thing that is making the biggest impact is going back to the personality of the person. And you're seeing that more and more in brands everywhere. That is what Gen Z is buying. They're buying personalities. They are not buying class. Whereas in years past, it was maybe even, in generations past, they cared very much about class and all these things. Do people still care about class? Yes. But I think people are more about wanting a story. They're more about wanting to know the personality of things. I mean, you look at other stars that are doing things such as that, like Taylor Swift. She is fully personality in her songwriting, fully personality in the way she's putting herself out there. But the only difference is she's constantly changing and evolving herself. So you sometimes wonder what parts of the personality are still true and what parts of them are fabricated for larger than life. And this is where when you look at someone like Olivia Dean, there's something about her stardom that feels like it's more authentic to who she is. But that's not always true either, because what was so interesting is before her success of her album, The Art of Loving You, and a little bit prior to that, more like let's think 2022. If you look up photos of Olivia Dean from 2022, you are going to see her style was drastically different than what it is today. It was a lot more casual. It was a lot more relaxed. And since she's grown into her own personality, now she's moved into being more timeless. She's moved into more elevated looks. And I think the same thing is going to happen. Basically, I think the same thing is going to happen for Chappell Roan is I expect her to have a Lady Gaga trajectory where she's always going to wow us because that is part of her personality. And I think that is something that, like a star needs to do. Every pop star is very different. Whereas Olivia Dean, it's going to be more of like an effortless, like chic. People are always going to look at her and be like, oh my God, I wish I could be that graceful. So all in all, if you're going to sum this up, I would say Olivia Dean is like this very graceful, very chic, and very joyful individual. Whereas when you look at Chappell Roan, it's like she's so fiery and she is so like she is going to speak up. And I think those are the main things that people are seeing in their personalities. And those are the things people are loving. I mean, even Chappell Roan, like I've heard her in interviews say things like, I don't have health insurance. And I mean, let's be honest. I've done the same thing where I've looked at some of these stars. Like I've looked at someone like a Chappell Roan and I'm like, she doesn't have health insurance. Like, doesn't she have like a #1 song? Isn't she like doing all these different things? What do you mean? Like she doesn't have health insurance? Like that's kind of crazy to me. Oh, she's not making the money I thought she would be making. And so that is something where once again, Gen Z is based on the currency of personality. And you're seeing that, especially with these two stars today. And so with my final thought on Olivia Dean and Chappell Roan, neither person's personality is right, nor is it wrong. It's the way their personalities are rooted. And so ultimately, when you look at Olivia Dean, like we had been talking about, there's sophistication and emotional storytelling. And looking at Chappell Roan, it's theatrical identity and the power of bringing community engagement as the forefront. And so that is the beauty of Gen Z and personality. It's the authenticity. It's really seeing people for where they are or where they're at ultimately. Now, to kind of keep in theme with the Grammys, another person that had a wow performance was Justin Bieber. Now, I believe Justin Bieber deserves his roses. I really do. If there is any artist that has been through it, if there's been any artist who hasn't even really been allowed to have a personality or have the personality that he wants, it's Justin Bieber. And you see that with his Grammy performance. So he had a Grammy performance on Sunday night. He performed his song Yukon from his album Swag. And what was the most captivating part of his whole performance? It wasn't the fact that he was only wearing gym shorts. I mean, no shirt, nothing. He just was wearing gym shorts. He did the entire performance by himself. He did this thing where he did live looping. That's basically when the performer records short sections in real time. So like he did the guitar and among other things. And so he had those different layers playing back as he was singing. And so during this whole performance, it's just him on the stage. He's not wearing anything crazy. He's only wearing gym shorts. And he sang with his eyes closed the entire time. By the time he stopped singing, you could see the crowd was visibly kind of in awe. That it was, Justin Bieber is insanely talented. Everybody knows this. It has been visible to see. But in this moment, this performance felt like such a point in time for him. This felt like a moment where he got to have his own say. He got to have his own personality. This was his first performance since his split with Scooter Braun. The last time he performed at the Grammys was in 2022, and that's when he performed Peaches. And so in this instance, to be able to be on the Grammy stage, to dress the way that he wants to dress, to perform the way he wants to perform from an album that he wrote creatively himself, well, he had like full creative control over. This was a complete separation from Scooter Braun, complete separation from the Justin Bieber that we knew before. And he has finally gotten to really step into the world of himself. He's gotten to step into, once again, personality, authenticity. What's so beautiful about this version of Justin is there's more emotional depth. And that is the thing that is so different. When people start to put on a caricature or a persona that's not really rooted in their personality, listen, you think about singers like Elton John, and it's like such wow factor to it. But there's some performers where even though they're putting a persona on, some of it still fits their personality. Like some people, like it's a little bit more natural for them. What's really hard is when someone puts on a persona that doesn't actually fit their personality. And you see that even like with Justin Bieber. I mean, I remember even watching his Never Say Never documentary back when like I was in high school. And I remember at the end, it was like a deleted scene or something where he wanted to cut his iconic hair. He had the swoosh, you know. Every girl during the Justin Bieber era knew the Justin Bieber swish, the swish throwing your hair and whatever. And so ultimately, when he had decided, you know, I think he was like 17 or like 18 at the time, and he's like, I want to cut my hair. I don't want my 16-year-old swoosh anymore. And I just remember seeing his team going crazy, like Scooter Braun in particular, where it's like, are we sure? I don't know if we should cut your hair. Like, your hair is so important. Like, they were making this poor kid's haircut out to be as if it was like a life and death situation. Now, don't get me wrong. Justin Bieber at 16, 17, and 18 years old, this was Justin Bieber's like prime. This was like his ultimate stardom. This was like his Beatle era. So like he was worth so much money. And like, I think they were just terrified that he was going to like get a buzz cut and everyone would be like, he's not cute anymore. And that's what they were thinking was going to happen. But this is where it's like not separating the artist from the person. And it's like this poor kid wants a haircut. That's what this is. He just wants a haircut. And you're not going to let him have a haircut because of what he represents as really like an entity, or what he represents as like a cash grab is ultimately what it is. And that is something where I don't think Gen Z tolerates that anymore. Gen Z is like, no, 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 no. We're not doing that anymore. Gen Z, you guys are all about really going after that. It's like being authentic, being true to yourself. That is really what it is. And this is something that I'm so excited to see more of Justin Bieber. And it's like he's starting to heal. Put it this way, Justin Bieber, everybody's got their flaws. Everybody has their life, their traumas, and, you know, especially Justin Bieber. But in this instance, I think it's really nice that it's like he's healing and it's like he's getting a part of himself back that has been gone for too long. Now, finally, let's talk about the Winter Olympics. Like I said at the top of this episode, for the next 2 weeks, this is going to be my personality. Okay, I can't believe Snoop Dogg is, I'm trying to think, was Snoop Dogg at the Paris Olympics? Let me know in the comments down below. I can't remember if he was at the Paris Olympics or not, but I love that Snoop Dogg is doing the commentary. I think this is hysterical. And okay, my favorite thing about the Olympics, it's the fashion. I love the opening ceremonies just because I want to see the outfits that everybody has. And what's also even better is like TikTok. You're just able to see more details of like what the outfits are that are being curated for the athletes. And I think it's like really cool. And my favorite, okay, I'm talking in like circles because I'm just so excited, but sticking to the fashion, I think what is so cool about just like the winter and the summer Olympics is I love how it's like, think about these athletes. A lot of them, they're just like normal, average people. A lot of them, either this is their first time competing in the Olympics, like they're relatively kind of like unknown, or they're only known in the certain like athletic world that they're known in. And so obviously they're entering into this potential global stardom. But what's also really cool is they're all getting this opportunity to kind of like be showered by other brands. And I think that's like really cool. And you see that on TikTok. There's been so many athletes, whether like I saw one athlete from Australia, they were showing like the outfits the Australian team has gotten from different companies. I just saw one about the Canadians, how they had like all these really cool outfits from like Lululemon and all these things. And I just think there's something so like sweet and wholesome about seeing these athletes that are getting showered with like all these like specialty outfits and branding. I don't know. It's so cool. It's so wholesome. I love it. But now going back to the opening ceremonies and the outfits, let's talk about which countries were doing it right. Now, obviously, you know what? I'm an American. I'm a little biased, especially when it comes to like the Olympics, and to see, hands down to Ralph Lauren and just what he designs. I think I'm like a big Ralph Lauren stan at this point. But like, yeah, like I love Ralph Lauren's designs. I really do. Like I loved the outfit he put together for the American team for Paris, the blazer, all of it. Like I loved it. I was here for it. And Ralph Lauren did not disappoint with the Winter Olympics outfits. So I'm going to have some photos on the screen. And unfortunately, if you're not watching on YouTube, the outfit was predominantly white. They had these beautiful like wool coats with a like very big like hood or whatever. I'm doing a horrible job explaining this. I'm really sorry. But then they had the really cute like knit sweater. There was like, think about like a Ralph Lauren sweater. Think about like those teddy bear sweaters. Like, you know what that texture looks like? Except this one it wasn't a teddy bear. It was like the American symbolism and different things like that. But basically, Ralph Lauren's outfits for America, I think were, in my opinion, they were my favorite. Like number one spot. Number two was tied with Great Britain and I believe it's Mongolia. Yeah, Mongolia. Guys, I can't pronounce anything to save my life. But Great Britain and Mongolia, I loved these outfits. Now, Great Britain, okay, come on, guys. Like Great Britain, UK, London, England. I just feel like if you come from like England or like London, you guys are just effortlessly cool. Like at least your clothing is. Like, yeah, like you just are. Like I looked at the Great Britain outfit and I'm just like, of course, they look great. And then Mongolia, this was like another league. I'm like, this is why I couldn't pick which one I wanted for number two, because I liked them both so much for separate reasons. But the Mongolia, it's just like, that's just cool. Like, I just don't know how to like kind of get away from it, if that makes sense. And I'm also just realizing now, if you were listening, this is going to be really hard to understand. But anyways, sorry. My favorite thing about the Mongolia outfit is I would say I love the contrast of colors. Like they did like a navy color. They're going for darker, deeper colors. And like, I don't know. I feel like everybody just looks so much better in like darker, deeper colors. That's just personal opinion. Anyways, Mongolia's outfit is just really cool. But I'll make sure to repost some photos of the opening ceremony outfits so that you guys can see kind of like what I'm talking about. And you can find us on Instagram at Let's Unravel Pod. Now, moving on. Okay, so once again, for the opening ceremonies, Mariah Carey saying, is it me or did she kind of like not look like herself? Maybe that's a little bit of a bizarre thing to say, but I don't know. Kind of seemed like it. I saw Lindsey Vonn is going to be skiing this year. I can't wait to see what her comeback story is like. Now, one of the things I was saying before is I am so excited. All of these athletes are posting on TikTok and Instagram. And like, this is the thing, like, once again, Gen Z, we are bringing personality to everything. And I love it. Like, I love it. Like, I'm telling you, like, the Olympics have never been better than when Gen Z has brought personality to it. So like even the Paris Olympics, I think those are like one of my favorite Olympics because there was so much personality. Like because now people have video, like they're doing the videos, they're posting it on TikTok. Whereas like even like when you had the London Olympics in 2012, it was really just like Instagram. You took some photos. We didn't have videos at that point in time. Maybe you tweeted about it a little bit. But what's been cool with the Paris Olympics and now the Winter Olympics is we are able to have real personality to this. We are seeing what everyone's like. You're getting to see what the Winter Village looks like. And on top of it, you're getting to see like what the viral foods are. Like for the Paris Olympics, everyone was going crazy for some like chocolate muffin, which I am making a prediction. I bet if there's a viral food that's going to come out of the Winter Village, I feel like it's going to be something coffee based because, like Italy does their espresso right. So like that is something what I'm thinking. And maybe some type of like pasta dish. Those would be my predictions. Anyways, but that is the thing that I have loved the most about this. And some of the athletes like that I'm paying attention to currently, which I'm constantly finding new and more athletes I'm loving to follow. But like I've always kind of followed Shaun White. He was a snowboarder. Started following Chloe Kim. She's a snowboarder. And then Red, I think I'm gonna mess up his last name. Red Gerard. I think I messed up his last name. But he's a snowboarder. His sister is Tegan Gard. She's the Half Baked Harvest girl, like the food blogger. I didn't know that. I thought that was really cool. I saw that on TikTok. But my absolute favorite thing about this Winter Olympics is NBC has hired a full set of content creators to cover the Winter Olympics. I'm talking, they got TikTokers, Instagrammers, podcasters / YouTubers. Okay, this is like having the finger on the pulse. Like, things are about to get good. Like, that's my personal opinion. I think the reason why the Paris Olympics were so good just like 2 summers ago, it was because they had all these content creators, because they brought personality to it. Guys, I know I keep saying personality, but this is the point. Like, I want you to understand this is what is going on. Like, this is the thing that, like, I want you to be sick of the word personality by the time I'm done talking. But anyways, I will put a link of all the content creators that NBC hired in the show notes down below. So if you want to see like who your favorites are. My last thought for you guys is, this is going to be a wild statement, but here it goes. If we are comparing the 1920s to the 2020s, the 1920s was identified as the Great Gatsby era. In the 2020s, we're going to most likely be identified as the TikTok era. You know, the one with all the personality. I'm sorry, I had to throw personality in there one more time. Anyways, that's all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'd love to connect with you more. You can connect with us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Let's Unravel Pod. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the podcast show in general, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now Facebook. Your 5-star reviews and comments go a very long way. And also, please don't forget to hit subscribe and follow wherever you might listen to stay up to date on all new episodes. We release new episodes every single Thursday, and you are not going to want to miss this. Well, it's that time of the episode for you to give me your thoughts, because I gave you a lot of mine. But please drop some comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Gen Z is the personality generation? Because I kind of think it is. So anyways, let me know your thoughts. I'll talk to you later. Bye.